There's that shot where he comes through and there's light filtering from the leaves and the trees that play across his face and his uniform. That was all on set. I mean, on location, rather. We were at Huntington Garden. The tunnel that he goes through, that was green screen. And then when he is dealing with Spock, that was an AR wall. So that sunset was there. So the sunset was lighting my face, and that was what you were getting. You're getting those beautiful
Is an
highlights.
AR wall like a volume?
Volume, yeah.
Okay.
Like the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Okay. And how does that, so then, David, how does that change your job if you're dealing with 3 different backgrounds? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. So, I mean, this is really common when you're doing sound. I mean, it goes back decades before I was born, where you are scoring what's in front of you. When it's green screen, obviously, that doesn't tell you anything. So I'm totally dependent on the visual effects to be in place, so that I can see what's happening. In a lot of ways, this movie was a silent movie, in that there was no dialogue, and that was by the way a very specific choice, because they could have done it.
Yeah.
There are endless tests with Sam speaking to himself as Captain Kirk that sound great. But what's interesting, excuse me, Katie, sorry. What's interesting is that the tunnel was terrifying, because I actually went to visit set, and it was all green screen, and I was watching. And by the way, when you're watching Sam, he's dressed as Kirk, and then you look at the monitors in Video Village, and it's Shatner. It's all real time. You're seeing it in real time. It's wild.
That's crazy.
And so the director is seeing exactly, Carlos Bena, he was seeing exactly what he was going to get, and he even had an iPad where he was just, looking at it and looking up and like this, and that was fascinating to watch. But that tunnel, I'll tell you, was terrifying, because they said, we're not going to have music there. And I said, well, what's going to be there? Oh, there's going to be some water, and other than that, it's just kind of like very dark with maybe some like glowing white light around the edges, and I had no idea what to do with that section for the longest time, nor did I know kind of what the driving force of this would be other than music. And that was like a really outstanding question for a long time. But when you're doing sound, or if you're a visual effects supervisor, you end up doing these spotting sessions with the director or showrunner multiple times, and they tell you what they're going for and what they see long before it's done. So you start working on it. And one of the more interesting things to come out of that was, I said, well, what are you going to do about music? Because this is no dialogue, and so it's going to be very music-driven the way a silent film is. And he goes, I don't know. He goes, my dream would be something like Michael Giacchino. And this is where it comes back to that, because, and I said, well, it's so interesting you say that, because I was at the time in the middle of doing Skeleton Crew at Skywalker. And the interesting thing about Skeleton Crew was that Michael Giacchino's son, Mick, was the composer. And so I was joining these Zooms all the time, because I was on with John Watts and his whole crew, but also Mick as the composer. This is before he had done Penguin. I think that came after Skeleton Crew, because this was like over a year ago. And Michael would join the calls, the Zoom calls, And I started getting these DMs from Michael going, hey, great to see you here, because I'd met him a few times over the years, and we had done a Medal of Honor title during COVID and all this. And I was like, hey, Michael, it's so great to see you. And I'm such a fan of his. His music is incredible. I think the melody he wrote for Up is like one of the greatest animated feature melodies of all time.
So simple yet not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you look at it and it just feels inevitable. Then you play it and you're like, oh God, this goes all over the place.
Yeah.
And so I just love his music. And it's funny because he goes, yeah, the show sounds great. Boy, it sounds like a Star Wars movie. You're doing a great job. Anyway, about your podcast. And he starts going on and on about the soundtrack show. And then I start hearing these little things where like he, on the set, on the mix stage of Inside Out 2, Pete Docter's asking the mixer, like, there's this David Collins guy, Giacchino won't shut up about his podcast. Anyway, he just started
it's a great
listening
podcast,
to my
David.
podcast. But it opened the door to where I felt comfortable enough to be like, hey, by the way, I've got this little project, because, Giacchino did 3 Star Trek movies, great music on their own, the entire, Kelvin timeline, and so I asked Matt Wood, I'm like, should I ask him if he would look at this even for 15 minutes? And he goes, you're offering him a gig, and he's a great guy and a huge nerd. Absolutely. So we were able to get his time for, it was like 15, 20 minutes. It turned into an hour. And Sam prepared this presentation for what they shot.
What's hilarious about that presentation, though, I'm going to add a little bit of personal NDA breaking information. Everyone was really nervous. And there were people who were trying to pitch this project and showing animatics and talking about all this stuff. And David just keeps texting me, show him the test. Show him why are we not showing him? Because David knew all you need to do to get Giacchino interested is.
Because he's such a dork?
Yes, show him Captain Kirk. And David's like, do it now. And eventually I bust in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you something. Hit play. And by the way, you could see Michael's just kind of sitting back, coolly assessing. He's been told, but he admires David, so he's being gracious with his time. And then we hit play on it. And what it was a recreation of a Wrath of Khan moment where Kirk comes on and just starts barking orders at everyone and does all this stuff. And so we hit
it's
play.
jaw-dropping. It's a jaw-dropping test, and I was like, just show him that,
Yeah.
And
so
then from there.
Was it things from Khan that weren't there? Like it was new footage?
Oh, yes. This was footage we had created of Captain Kirk.
Things that should not have existed.
That don't exist, right.
Got it.
So everyone's talking and they're showing, again, just things that are just not, even like stills. And he doesn't know what to make of it. And then David's like, now. So eventually I break in and I hit play. And Captain Kirk just bursts onto the scene and starts barking orders at everyone. And little moment of twinkle in the eye and all this stuff. He talks to the crew. And at that point, you could see on Zoom, you could see Michael Giacchino, he's sitting like this. And then Kirk shows up and he goes, he just immediately starts leaning forward in his chair and his eyebrows are going up.
Because he's a fan.
Yeah, and it's Captain Kirk. And he knew the movie well enough to know that I didn't totally follow exactly how it was said in the movie, but I was following what might have been an alternate take,
Exactly.
And so afterward, he's like, great, what would you like me to do? It's just really cool. We're like,